Welcome to Foxfire Focus, the podcast that brings clarity and insight to the industry's most relevant issues. Foxfire's mission is to provide the best service experience in eye care. So, we hope you enjoy what you're about to hear and that this information provides some perspective on the exciting opportunities facing our profession. For more information about Foxfire, please visit us at foxfiresg.com. Foxfire, taking care of your practice so you can manage your patients.
Hello, and welcome to Foxfire Focus. I'm your host, Tim Nichols. And today, our special guest is not an optometrist. The only thing he knows about optometry is that he's wearing glasses. But if you talk about success and coaching for success, this man knows a lot. If you've heard the name Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Heath Shuler, those are some of the 8 NFL quarterbacks that he has coached during his time at the University of Tennessee, at Ole Miss, and then at Duke University. Our guest today is Coach David Cutcliffe. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. And you know, one thing I do know about optometry is that you better have a good one. And it's interesting in the travels of coaching and realizing I was going to need glasses. I've been to a lot of different people in different locations.
Yeah.
And, you tend as a coach to kind of grade people. And I've been very blessed and fortunate to have good folks in my corner in that regard.
Well, thank you. A lot of people in this audience is optometrists. They would ask, well, why are you having a football coach on an optometry podcast? David, I think you and I share the conviction that life has a lot of similarities, whether you're playing football or running a business. And in your particular position, you have spoken to businesses of all sizes all over the country. What do you think are the similarities between football and business?
Well, the first thing is attention to detail has to be there. If you don't live with attention to detail in both your professional and personal life, because they will bleed together. I tell young coaches that all the time. Coach Lombardi said it years ago, winning is not a sometime thing. It's an all the time thing. And anybody in the business world would quickly tell you that that is a huge part of being successful. So let's just start with the attention to detail that it takes, the little things, as Coach Bryant used to say. And there's a constant there in any organization. What are the little things? I think, Tim, the biggest thing I learned along the way that apply to both is using that comment. And now what's the formula? What are the little things? What are the things that need detail? If you're spending a lot of your time on things that aren't the winning edge, then you're wasting energy. And so that's been really important to me as I've grown, is to fine tune what are the winning edges? Where does our detail need to go?
Now, you shared with me your 55 rule last year. I thought that was just brilliant. You said you should have patented it or copyrighted it or something.
I should have.
You should have, but we're going to throw it out there for everybody to learn from. So would you share with us what the 55 rule is?
Where the 55 came in is a product of what I just said. What are the most critical little things that we do on a day-to-day basis in football? The second 5 of that number for our world is the 5 seconds that a average football play will last, which is kind of mind-boggling. If you play 60 plays of football, you're totally exhausted. Well, in actuality of live play, that's about 6 minutes. So how important are these details? As you view your business, I don't know where the second 5 lives, but it's a day-to-day function. It's a play-to-play function. It's a minute by minute, hour by hour function, as I view it, on and off, or in your business or out of your business. But the 5 things that we ask our players and our coaches to win was, first of all, alignment. If you don't have complete and great alignment in football, I used to watch as an offensive coordinator just slideshows of defensive alignments. And if they aligned poorly as to what they were trying to play, I knew we were going to beat them or probably put them in the half 100 club. That meant we were going to hang 50 points on them just by looking at bad or average alignment. But, in our lives and our business and our people have to be aligned. So alignment is a huge word, and it is one that absolutely deserves your attention to detail. The next thing is assignment. And, we get what we teach, and knowledge is power. But if we don't teach our people exactly what we want them to do, if assignment is not clear and concise, then you're sure to fail. Because again, let's go back to the little details. Being a football player, stance, I should start there. Stance and steps and footwork and body leverage and hand placement, all of it is critical. And I don't know what's critical in running a business, but I do know that there is an alignment and assignment that's necessary. And if it's not there, and if it's not clearly communicated and all the details met, I don't care what your product is or who you are, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Never gotten started. And then the third thing for us was effort. And that should be a given. But no, I don't think it is. I think without alignment and assignment, often effort is chaos.
You're a loose cannon.
And no question. And then there are different levels of effort. I call it unbelievable effort. So let's say we're in a football office and the offense is over here watching, a game film of the previous day, and the defense is over in the defensive staff room watching it. And all of a sudden, the defensive staff sends somebody over and say, "Come on, you guys got to watch this." And they show a player, one of their players that maybe gets cut, knocked to the ground twice, gets up, sprints, gets knocked down again, and then makes a tackle for a 1-yard loss because of amazing, unbelievable effort. And you take that in your organization I love to catch people doing something great on a daily basis in our organization. And when you do, celebrate it. We have to correct and we have to call people in and say, "Hey, this has got to be better." But when's the last time you called somebody in and said, "This is phenomenal"? And everybody needs to see it. So, effort. And then, I use this as an example. The fast food industry, is very competitive, just like your industry. And so there are certain drive-throughs you go in and it seems like it takes forever. When you finally get up to the window, you realize the person getting the fries and the drinks, they're all bumping into each other. You can't tell who's doing what. And I'm not trying to do an advertisement, but there's a certain franchise that figured it out. They got people outside taking your order, taking your name. And you get up to the window and everybody's got a job. It's the same amount of effort, but there's alignment and assignment. And most of you now know who I'm talking about, Chick-fil-A.
They make money in 6 days. Yeah.
It does. And it's real. And it's a great example of alignment, assignment, and effort. Yeah. And then the next thing is a powerful word to me. And it's one that I have personally focused on. I do give talks and lectures, and I'm a natural teacher. That's what we are as coaches. But philosophy has never won a football game. I don't think philosophy is going to create a great business or an organization. You can sit in a boardroom, and I tell these CEOs that I talk with, "Hey, that sounds great, man." Sounds. Well, execution suggests you're doing it. This is a horrible example, but it's the best one I can use, is that in the era of capital punishment, an inmate on death row is breathing until they're executed. It suggests it's done. So there are also different levels of execution as we align and we assign and we got great effort. Well, now we have to grade the execution to a fine detail, okay? Because you can have good execution, average execution, poor execution, or you can have great execution. And guess what? Oh, Aristotle was right. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. If we execute great consistently, guess what we become? We become great. And I've been selling that to staffs and young people for 46 years. Yeah, that's the key and critical word until we get to the fifth one. And I love this. It is everything to me. Finish. Finish. There are so many definitions of finished. Job well done. Come on now. Finish. You have to understand how critical that is in your business, how everybody is finishing. And I use this all the time. I could take, in a hiring practice, people out, and we could take 10 people, and we could have 10 lawns equally just trashed, all the same items, okay? And here's the instruction. Get this cleaned up, and do not call us to come pick you up until you're finished. And you will find 10 different definitions of finished. Give a project, finish this. Woo. And I'm going to tell you, the ones that understand the value of finish, man, hire them as quickly as you can. Elevate those people, because that's contagious. When we would do our drills, every drill had a 55. The coach had to turn it in to me. The daily drills on the practice field. What's your 55? What's the alignment? What's the assignment? What effort level are we expecting? How do you expect them to execute this? And most importantly, the finish. And you have to see all of those things on a consistent basis to make an evaluation. So, like, I'll give you an example. Tim, you're a football guy. A coach can't smother a drill. You've got to back up a little bit so you can see the finish. And when we tell somebody, we don't ever say to the line. We say through it. That doesn't mean get to the line and your head comes up, you have finished the drill. No, you get your entire body, give the organization 2 extra yards. That's what I'm looking for, 2 extra yards. And so when you've got 3rd and 1 inch to win the game, and we see it every week, somebody down on the goal line, Ohio State, Notre Dame just had that. And who did that 55 the best? And I'm not picking on Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. They had 10 people on the field. That's alignment and assignment. Maybe the effort was the same, but Ohio State won that final half yard. But that's not an accident. You do it every day in your organization. When you have a chance to meet, regardless of your product, maybe at times even regardless of your skill level, you can be a winner. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to all be winners to help people. And you do that as physicians. You're trying to all be winners to help people in something that's critical in their lives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a super master class right there in business philosophy, taken straight off the football field. Coach, you measure a lot of things in football. Obviously, the score, first downs, completions, so forth. The importance of metrics. What do you think about? Do you see businesses paying attention to their metrics the way they should, or do you see that there's sometimes a gap there?
Well, I think where the gap is that a lot of people that I deal with talking in business, they use the term margin too much. Well, what creates a margin? Let's go back to your cost. That is the level of performance there, not what you can charge, not the top end number. How do you take a metric and you create a value in your day to day? That's the line, not the margin itself. How many things do you, as a individual consumer, go out and pay too much for in your mind? I guarantee you, every day we see it on our day to day. So if you want to have a winning edge, then how do you reduce your cost? By performance, by unity, by energy, by enthusiasm. There's a great physics formula that I have used most of my life since high school, and it is P equals W over T. I thought life was totally unfair, that privileged people had it made. Tim and I were far from privileged, but I did. And I was a little bit angry about it. Things happened in our family that just made things tougher and tougher. And I thought, man, these guys, they got it made. Man, life's unfair, until I got P equals W over T. So what that is power equals work over time. And the constant is time. Your organization has the same time as any other organization in this country. Your business. You can't fool time. 1 hour is 1 hour. The critical component is the W over T, the amount of work you can get done in a given period of time. And I don't care if it's 15 minutes. And listen, I'm not one of these guys that we didn't stay till 2 a.m., midnight, or even 10 p.m. When we worked, we were performing at a high level. We organized our time. Time's the most precious thing on this earth. If you don't believe that, no matter what you collect in your life, when your time's out, none of that matters. Time is the most critical thing on earth. So that P grows, which is power, as that W grows. And it doesn't mean you can't go in and be the, quote, slave driver. It is the quality of the work. It's the quality of the W in that given period of time. And I could prove that to coaches. And what I did was I learned about a football practice being about 2.5 hours until I started really seeing the amount of wasted time. Too many dissertations on the field where nobody was working. There was a coach just running his mouth. Work is truly an action, not a verbiage. Okay, so we turned a 2.5 hour practice, and I had a computer. By the time I'm nearing the end, I'm a much better coach. So my first year at Duke, I figured all this out. We had a heavy class level, a load, and those players were really taxed in that regard. So we turned a 2.5 hour practice into 1 hour and 48 minutes to a T. We had, first of all, the transition between periods was timed. We went with 5-second intervals unless there was a big field change, and then it was 15 seconds. And I expected everybody to be working as soon as that next horn sounded, and we went into the next period. And that sounds like slave driving. No, they loved it. They loved being busy, and then you know what you get? They get time.
Yeah.
They get time they hadn't had. And so in your organization, I would look at the power equals work over time. What are we getting done? Not that you don't need a little bit of chit chat and leisure along the way. I'm not saying that. I'm saying when you're working, let's go, man. Let's go. And then you know what? You may finish your appointment. At the end of the day, you tell your folks, hey, folks, we got everything we planned to do today an hour early. Head on home.
Yeah.
Let's get fired up,
That's a valuable commodity. You're exactly right. Coach, I remember watching you over the years. Sometimes you were on the sidelines. Sometimes you were up in the booth. How important is it to have that above the field look, and how does that kind of translate into the business world where you need a second set of eyes looking at what you're seeing?
I was a long time offensive coordinator, and I always did it from the booth. I'm chuckling because I see what I call TV coordinators. They want to be on the sideline to get a little FaceTime. Okay. There's no way that you can see or function as well when you're an offensive or defensive coordinator from the sideline. When you get the bird's eye view and you train your eyes to see in the right places, and the head coach is on the sideline, you're communicating with him. You build a level of trust with each other. And so your words are meaningful. He knows the view. And I always, when I was a head coach, had someone up there that I 1000% trusted their words, their vision. We were on the same page. So nothing was wasted. And you can still make battlefield decisions from the sideline. I'm not saying that you don't kind of use your gut, but man, that information is critical. So I would, any organization, and it's why people pay consultants, but why pay a consultant when you can develop that person in your own world? And that's how I always viewed our coordinators. And I would tell them, I'm leaning on you to be a consultant. And we had a coordinator meeting where we had a special team coordinator, defensive coordinator, and offensive coordinator, and myself. We always met. We talked about every circumstance, game situation, analytics, any decision that might come up during the game. I wanted the defense to know what the offense was thinking, vice versa, and the kicking game, which is the blend. So it was probably when we perfected that, and we were fortunate to keep our people together for long periods of time. Ultimately, I was never at a place where we could pay them enough. And I don't know if you run into that or not, but I lost guys that were tripling their salary either to go to the NFL or go to one of the halves of college football. But if you treat people well enough and you have a great atmosphere, oftentimes, and you're paying them as good as you can, you keep your people. But I think that's a big part of that too, Tim. That bird's eye view needs to be on the same wavelength that you are.
Yeah. Coach, we've talked about a lot of important things. We've talked about culture, talked about communication, we talked about efficiency and so forth. There are a couple of things that happen in your life, in your coaching career, that I want to ask you about, because I think they speak to something else I think is very important for a leader in an organization, and that is integrity. And you, when you took over head coaching at Ole Miss, you had a winning record 5 years straight, had a down year, and then there was a new offensive coordinator. And the offensive coordinator asked you to fire your team, pretty much, make some changes. You disagreed. And at that point, things kind of hit the wall. It was either, well, you fire those people or you're fired. Mm. And I know that was a hard decision, but you chose something that was very costly because you felt like it was the right thing to do. And you stuck with your team, and you all got fired.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate part of it. It's costly. The word integrity comes from the Latin word integritas, which is what Roman soldiers greeted each other with, integritas. And that's kind of what we all viewed, and not the same, but we viewed each other as soldiers together. We had a battle to fight every day. And the new AD and the president, we had an embarrassing loss at Wyoming. We had an embarrassing loss at Arkansas, and we played pretty well. And I had one coach that I felt like was maybe a little out of his talent level, and I was going to make a change there. I had a plan. And then all of a sudden I was shocked the morning after our last game, which was, by the way, a 20-3 win. They hit me with an ultimatum. And, I gave it thought, and I just said, no, I'm not going to fire people. And this was like 6 people on our staff. I'm not going to fire people that have done nothing but be great in the organization. You're talking about tearing out the heart of our players because they know who's good and who's not. And these are good men and they're talented coaches. And of that group, 4 of them are still coaching in the NFL today, highly successful, which is kind of comical. But I think all of us, the word integrity, the word character, I like where integritas, where it lived. And character is from a Greek word. And what it stood for was a permanent engraving tool. Okay, that's phenomenal. So character is not a sometime thing. And I think it takes a lifetime to earn it. It's permanently engraved in you or not. And you can take the path of spirituality. You can take the path of just being truthful. But we all, as leaders, are serving. And the only way to truly serve is through integrity. And that's that unity, and through character, which is permanent. So I get a little almost teary because of the people that I basically lived with in our line of work, and the integrity and the character they displayed. And then let's take one huge step to literally maybe thousands of young people, is that those folks, those players, wow, incredible integrity and character.
Coach, I know when you talk about building your team, most people at a glance think, well, he's talking about the players. But you are a coach of coaches.
Yes.
And building that team, and I know how you've described to me how you want your players to know the name of everybody in the organization, from the guys that are washing the uniforms and mopping the floors, to the coaches, to all the support staff, that it is important that everybody in the team be recognized by those players that are actually benefiting from their work. So speak a little bit about your feelings of how important that is to you.
Well, I think it's everything. I think when you walk in any organization, that is a climate that is created. Okay. When everybody in the organization truly appreciates every aspect of what it takes, there's no little or small jobs. I kept an office as a head coach down near the equipment room. That's a source if you've never been around college football. It's always near or by the locker room. The training room, the weight room, generally all in a very strategic location when you build a facility. I call it the heartbeat. And so I paid attention, and I could hear through my walls players talking to our equipment people. Our players knew of the standards we expected in keeping their own space and locker room clean, so our custodial staff would be the best on campus. So what I told our people, and I always had a collective meeting twice a year. I mean, everybody in our building, player, everybody in there. And we would celebrate some milestones that people had. But most importantly, I would tell them this: when someone, like, okay, I'll use a grocery store. My dad was a grocer until he died going to work in a wreck, and you remember that. And but we'd go to church and we'd go over there Sunday afternoon, and Daddy would have me polishing apples and produce, and everything in that store was just first class. And so there's three reactions when you walk in a grocery store to me. One, you go in, you don't pay attention. There's nothing. You just go get your grocery and leave. Unfortunately, you go in sometimes and they're poorly stocked. You may get a stain or a spill on the floor. And you don't want to go back. And every now and then you go in one. But man, the lights are bright. The produce is shining. The people are smiling. The atmosphere, the climate, the environment. I use climate for this reason. You take a little cabin from somewhere around where we grew up in the woods, and 1,500 square feet, and it ain't going to bring $20, $15 a square foot. Take that same little cabin and put it on the Northern California coast overlooking the Pacific Ocean, you'll get $5,000 a square foot. So don't tell me climate doesn't matter. So when somebody walks into your facility, it should be that third reaction. I don't care who they are. We never knew who was going to come as an unofficial visit or official visit, or if the president was going to walk in there. They were going to find the best smiles, the best attitudes, the cleanest building. We had a policy: if anything was on the floor, it was picked up by anybody and everybody there. That wasn't somebody else's job.
Yes.
It's all of our job. And so what I would tell you is that your people are your people. We're born to family, then we start choosing our peeps, as I like to say.
Yeah.
And you better choose well. And then you got a winner when you got an owner. Nobody rents a car and goes and has it detailed. Don't have renters in your building. You need owners. And that's part of your job as a leader, is to create ownership.
David, 2010, you'd been at Duke, 2 years? And that school up there in Knoxville that you had spent so much of your time, and your family was there, and you had all of this connection to that community. They wanted you to come back, and they wanted you bad. Bill Fulmer was done as coach, and they were looking for the next great coach. And of course, everybody said, David Cutcliffe's the man. But you turned them down, David. Why did you do that?
Well, I had some private conversations in two directions. One early with some of those folks at Tennessee. And I had people with me at Duke that would have to be hired. I'm not leaving my people. And they had a vision of not letting me bring my people. I'd have to use some of their people.
Yeah.
That was one that bothered me. And then there was another source called Francis Cutcliffe. And I called Mama, and she had heard about it. She said, "You're going to Tennessee?" I said, "No, Mom." She said, "Hush, you listen to me. Have you been in those folks' homes there, Duke? You hadn't been there long. You told them you were going to be their coach?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Well, then the decision's made." "Yes, ma'am." That's kind of where I was leaning. And she said, "Yeah, leaning? You can't do that to people. You honor your contracts. How many years you got left on your contract?" I said, 4. She said, "You're not going anywhere until you complete your contract." And I didn't have a buyout like most of these other coaches and all of that. I could have left technically at any time. But you know what? As she always was, Frances was absolutely right. Loyalty and leadership goes both ways.
Yes.
And I never look back, and money has never been my motivator. And it's kind of funny. I've had a number of job offers through the years where even in the NFL, I've had an owner come back and say, okay, let's cut to the quick. Now, how much money do you need? And I said, well, I don't really need any, but I'm not interested in the job. I'm not. And this guy that I was talking to was Castle Shopping in Scotland and talking to me in a helicopter in the process, throwing out money like, it was paper.
Yeah.
And I knew that he was a son of a billionaire that made the money. And you talking about turned off.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to say, well, buy me a castle and give me that helicopter. And we're all good.
Oh,
it's funny what people's priorities. Well, I shouldn't even see. There's no word plural. Priorities aren't plural. You start with it. What is your priority? And my mother put that right to the point. That's the priority is your people.
My goodness. I had the privilege of knowing her and sitting at her kitchen table with her. And yeah, like you said, we won the parent lottery, didn't we, David?
Man, don't buy lottery tickets if you've won the parent lottery. It's a waste of your time.
All right. We're going to have to wrap this up. We've taken too much of your time. Currently, you are in the SEC office where you are serving as the special assistant to the SEC commissioner for football. And it's fall in Alabama, and that's busy time. But I couldn't leave without calling attention to that picture over your shoulder.
Yeah.
And that's Bear Bryant leaning against that goal post in University of Tennessee Stadium, Neyman Stadium. And that's an iconic picture. You see it a lot of places in Alabama. What you just told me, though, was that right after that picture was taken, you were standing there talking with Bear Bryant because you were the offensive coordinator at Tennessee at that time. You've known a lot of coaches. You yourself have been SEC Coach of the Year. You've been ACC Coach of the Year twice. You've seen everybody from Bear Bryant forward. And there's some great coaches, I'm sure, in your mind. And I'd ask you, just name a few names and then tell us in your mind what made them great coaches and great people.
I think, I saw a special on Pat Dye last night. It's on public broadcasting called Mighty, and I would recommend anybody watching it. Coach Dye was consistent. I called Coach Dye when I got the Ole Miss job because I knew how tough he was as an assistant at Alabama and how consistent he was day after day after day. Things didn't change with Pat Dye. And I said, I want one of your former players that's coaching now. And I didn't have to interview the guy. I called him, offered him a job when Coach Dye said that. Trust is a big word. Joe Paterno was important to me. Bobby Bowden was important to me. I developed relationships with those guys. Joe Paterno told me something that really resonated with me. I was a coordinator, and he said, David, you're going to end up a head coach. And you're a heck of a football coach. Wow. I mean, I was on cloud nine, but then he said, you need to go and you need to understand, you got to find the right place that fits your personality. And man, how critically important is that? And then Coach Bowden, who was my uncle's roommate in college, my Uncle Honey, my daddy's brother, Coach Bowden, I even got to go up in the tower with him, which would drive his assistant coaches crazy. They thought I was up there talking about them, criticizing them. But Coach Bowden would talk about the importance, like Coach Bryant would, about your people, about surround yourself with people that are winners, and not just in what they do, but in their lives. And Bobby Bowden walked that walk. I knew many, many of his assistants very, very well. And so, it's kind of like whether you were going to be a blacksmith or whatever you were going to do, probably the most important aspect of our lives is kind of who we learn from, who we intern for. All of those people collectively made a a great impact on me. And there are others. I sat with Johnny Ball and had amazing conversations. And coaching was a different time in their era. But you know what I found? The fundamentals, and I don't know if this is true in being a physician, but the deep-seated fundamentals never change. Kurt Russell is another one. Maybe a lot of people don't know that name. Coach Russell started the program at Georgia Southern, and it was phenomenally successful. And wow, I mean, yeah, just I think that's why podcast. I think that's why conventions. I learned. I didn't go to a convention to go out. I went there to learn. So I think all of those coaches I just mentioned, Coach Bryant kept learning. He went to the Wishbone, remember?
Yes.
Everybody was calling for him to be fired. A lot of people don't remember all that stuff. The transition at the end of being a normal offense didn't go well. And so he went and learned the Wishbone. He transitioned into African-American athletes when he knew it was the right thing. He was Darrell Royal, who I liked a lot. There's another one I learned from, but Coach Royal said something to me one time that made me laugh because they were jealous a little bit of Coach Bryant. He said, "Oh, Paul wasn't any better than the rest of us. He was just willing to change." Interesting comment, right?
Yes.
The best way to deal with change is to, even if it's not the best, is you embrace it to try to alter it. If you fight it, then you have no shot. So anyway, that's a long answer, but this is my life, or those people.
Yeah.
And I really, I guess ultimately, Tim, I probably need to get somebody to help me write a book, not because I need to write a book, but because some of these people and their abilities and their philosophies maybe not told the way I could tell them.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a story that needs to be told.
We need to capture that because, my goodness, just in this time that we've spent together, there's been so much wisdom spoken. David, we need to, I was thinking we need to do this over and over and over again, start a podcast. We can call it Cut Class.
Well, yeah, I don't think class was kind of a fun thing to do on occasion. So maybe you got something there.
Oh, that's fun. Well, thank you, David, for your time. My goodness, what a wonderful thing. So Foxfire Focus, folks, and Coach David Cutcliffe. Thank you very much.
Well, Tim, listen to Dr. Tim Nichols, because great, dear friends are the most precious thing you can have in your life. And thank you for being such a dear friend, Tim.
Thank you for being my friend.